Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem, amma ba'd. Alhamdulillah, in our lessons of Riyadhus Saliheen, we have done nearly 30 ahadith. We have done 29, we are into the 30th hadith. We have covered the chapter of Ikhlas, and then the chapter of Tawbah, and now we are into the chapter of Sabr. يا أيها الذين آمنوا استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة إن الله مع الصابرين وبشر الصابرين الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون أولئك عليهم صلوات من ربهم ورحمة وأولئك هم المهتدون. So this is with regards to sabr. We have gone through some hadith. Now we are into this hadith number 30. وعن صهيب رضي الله عنه. It's a long hadith. I will read the Arabic text and then inshallah we will do the translation and brief commentary of the hadith. This hadith is narrated by Imam Muslim rahmatullahi alayh, and it's also been narrated by Ibn Kathir and other Mufassirin under the ayat of وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْبُرُوجِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْمَوْعُودِ وَشَاهِدٍ وَمَشْهُودٍ قتل أصحاب الأخدود النار ذات الوقود إذ هم عليها قعود وهم على ما يفعلون بالمؤمنين شهود. So under the ayat of أصحاب الأخدود, the people who dug those trenches and threw people inside those trenches, murdered them, killed them, burnt them to death. Allah is mentioning the condition of those people. This incident happened in Najran, in an area called Najran in Yemen, that is south of Hijaz, Makkah Mukarramah and Medina Munawwara. So over there the story of Ashabul Ukhdud is narrated by all the Mufassirin. This is the hadith with regards to the sabr of those people who were thrown into that fire. Why did he throw them into that fire? There is a story behind it. Here is the story. I will read the Arabic and then we'll go over the translation inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وعن صهيب رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال كان ملك في من كان قبلكم وكان له ساحر فلما كبر قال للملك إني قد كبرت فبعث إلي غلاما أعلمه السحر فبعث إليه غلاما يعلمه وكان في طريقه إذا سلك راهب فقعد إليه وسمع كلامه فأعجبه. Suhaib Rumi radiyallahu anhu narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, there was a king among those people who were before you, and he had a magician. When the magician, sorcerer, Sahir grew old, he said to the king that I have grown old, send a young boy to me whom I can teach this magic. So the king sent to him one young boy whom he would teach. And on the way which the young boy took to go to the Sahir, magician, there was a Rahib, a monk who would worship God Almighty. And this was during the time of between Sayyiduna Isa ala Nabiyina wa alayhi salam and Sayyiduna Mawlana Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, about 300 years after Sayyiduna Isa alayhi salam. So this monk was a proper, nice, pious person, a wali of Allah, and who used to worship Allah in the cave and alone, so loneliness. So the young boy would pass by that monk. So he sat with the monk and he heard the words of the Rahib monk, and the words pleased him and he felt good. وَكَانَ إِذَا أَتَى السَّاحِرُ مَرَّ بِالرَّاهِبِ وَقَعَدَ إِلَيْهِ فَإِذَا أَتَى السَّاحِرُ ضَرَبَهُ فَشَكَى ذَلِكَ إِلَى الرَّاهِبِ فقال إذا خشيت الساحر فقل حبسني أهلي وَإِذَا خَشِيتَ أَهْلَكَ فَقُلْ حَبَسَنِ السَّاحِرُ. Now when the boy would go to the magician, he would pass by the rahib and he would sit with him. Then he would get late when he would go to the sahir. So the sahir would beat him up, hit him. Why are you late? Why did you not come on time? So he complained this to the rahib, and the rahib told him a trick. He said, when you fear the magician, tell him that my family withheld me. They held me back, so I couldn't come on time. And when you fear your family, tell them that the sahir held me back and he stopped me from coming. فَبَيْنَهُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ إِذْ أَتَى عَلَى دَابَّةٍ عَظِيمَةٍ قَدْ حَبَسَتِ النَّاسَ فَقَالَ الْيَوْمَ أَعْلَمُ السَّاحِرُ أَفْضَلُ أَمِ الرَّاهِبُ أَفْضَلُ فأخذ حجرا فقال اللهم إن كان أمر الراهب أحب إليك من أمر الساحر فاقتل هذه الدابة حتى يمضي الناس فرماها فقتلها ومضى الناس فأتى الراهب فأخبره فقال له الراهب أي بني أنت اليوم أفضل مني قد بلغ من أمرك ما أرى وإنك ستبتلى فإن ابتليت فلا تدل علي. Then as he was in this condition, suddenly he came upon a huge animal which had prevented people from passing by. Ibn Allan al-Dimashqi narrates that this animal was a lion, and the lion was in the street and people were scared to go in that street, so they had to go through the other way and everybody was running off. So the young boy said, today I will find out whether the magician is better or the monk is better. So he took a stone and he said, "Oh Allah, if the matter of the monk is more beloved to you than the matter of the magician, then kill this animal, this lion, with this stone, so that people can pass through this alley and through this street." Then he threw the stone at the lion, and with that one stone he killed it, and people started passing by. So he came to the monk and he told him of this incident, that look, I made this dua that if the monk is more beloved to you, O Allah, then kill this. So Allah Pak killed it, so you are more beloved to Allah than the rahib, than the sahir and magician. So the rahib said to him, "Dear son, today you are more virtuous than me myself. Your matter has reached that stage which I see, and surely you will be tested. So if you are tested, then don't tell people about me. فَإِنِ ابْتُلِيتَ فَلَا تَدُلَّ عَلَيْهِ وَكَانَ الْغُلَامُ يُبْرِئُ الْأَكْمَهَ وَالْأَبْرَصَ وَيُدَاوِي النَّاسَ مِنْ سَائِرِ الْأَدْوَاءِ." And the young boy used to cure the bone blind and the leper, and he would cure people from all sicknesses, ailments, sicknesses. فسمع جليس للملك كان قد عمي فأتاه بهدايا كثيرة فقال ما ها هنا لك أجمع إن أنت شفيتني. فقال إني لا أشفي أحدا إنما يشفي الله تعالى فإن آمنت بالله تعالى دعوت الله فشفاك فآمن بالله تعالى فشفاه الله تعالى. So one attendant of the king heard about this young boy. He had become blind, so he came to the young boy with plenty of gifts and presents, and he said, "O young boy, whatever money and presents I have brought over here, all of it is yours and a gift for you if you cure me." So the young boy said, "I don't cure anyone. Allah is the one who cures, He gives shifa. If you believe in Allah, I will pray to Allah, make dua that Allah will give you shifa." So the person believed in Allah and Allah cured him. فأتى الملك فجلس إليه كما كان يجلس فقال له الملك من رد عليك بصرك؟ قال ربي. قال ولك رب غيري؟ قال ربي وربك الله. So that attendant went to the king and he sat with him as he used to sit. So the king said to him, who returned your eyesight? And he said, my Rabb returned it. And the king was angry. He said, do you have any Rabb besides me? He said, my Rabb and your Rabb is Allah. فأخذه فلم يزل يعذبه حتى دل على الغلام فجيء بالغلام فقال له الملك أي بني قد بلغ من سحرك ما تبرئ الأكمه والأبرص وتفعل فقال إني لا أشفي عادا إنما يشفي الله. When the attendant said that, the king got hold of him and he started punishing him, beating him up until he informed the king of the young boy. So the young boy was brought and the king said to him, dear son, your magic has reached such a stage that you cure the born blind, the leper, and you do this and this. فقال إني لا أشفي أحدا إنما يشفي الله. The young boy said, I don't cure anyone. It is Allah who cures. فأخذه فلم يزل يعذبه حتى دل على الراهب. So the king got hold of him and began to punish him until he informed the king about the rahib. فجيء بالراهب. So the rahib was brought. فقيل له ارجع عن دينك. And he was told, return from your deen. Turn away from your religion and accept our religion. Meaning he was an idol worshipper. So don't worship your Rabb, worship the idols. فأبى. The rahib said, no, I can't do that. فدعا بالمنشار فوضع المنشار في مفرق رأسه فشقه. So he called for a saw, and the saw was put on the middle part of his head, and he was chopped into two pieces, and two pieces of his body fell on the side. ثم جيء بجليس الملك. Then the attendant of the king was brought. فقيل له ارجع عن دينك فأبى فوضع المنشار في مفرق رأسه فشقه به حتى وقع شقاه. So he was told, return from your religion. He said, no, I won't. So the saw was put on the middle of his head and he was torn apart into two pieces and both pieces fell apart. ثم جيء بالغلام. Then the young boy was brought. فقيل له ارجع عن دينك فأبى. He was told, turn away from your deen. He said, no. فدفعه إلى نفر من أصحابه. The king handed him over to a group of his servants. فقال اذهبوا به إلى جبل كذا وكذا فاصعدوا به الجبل فإذا بلغتم ذروته فإن رجع عن دينه وإلا فاطرحوه. He said to his attendants, take this young boy, meaning I don't want to kill him, so with the saw, but take him to so and so mountain which was very steep and high, and go on and climb over the mountain with him. Then when you get to the top, the peak, then ask him. If he returns from his deen, then okay, let him off. Otherwise, throw him down that mountain and he will roll, and he will somehow be torn into pieces and die. فَذَهَبُوا بِهِ فَصَعِدُوا بِهِ الْجَبَلِ. They took him over and they climbed the mountain. When they went to the top, he said, Allahumma kfinihim bima shi'ta. O Allah, suffice me from these people in whichever manner you think is better. فَرَجَفَ بِهِمْ الْجَبَلْ فَسَقَطُوا. And there was an earthquake and the mountain started shaking, and all of the soldiers who took him up there, they all fell, and the young boy was safe. So he came down the mountain, and وَجَاءَ يَمْشِي إِلَى الْمَلِكِ. He came to the king. فَقَالَ لَهُ الْمَلِكِ مَا فُعِلَ بِأَصْحَابِي. And the king asked him, what happened to your attendants, the companions? فَقَالَ كَفَانِيهِمُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى. Allah was enough for me, He took care of them. فَدَفَعَهُ إِلَى نَفَرٍ مِّنْ أَصْحَابِهِ. He handed him over to another group from his soldiers. فقال اذهبوا به فاحملوه في قرقور وتوسطوا به البحر فإن رجع عن ديني وإلا فاقذفوه. And he said, take him and carry him on a ship, on a boat, and take him to the middle of the ocean. Then if he turned away from his deen, okay, otherwise fling him and throw him into the ocean, and he will drown into the ocean. He can't swim back to the shore. فَذَهَبُوا بِهِ, they took him. فَقَالَ اللَّهُمَّ اكْفِنِيهِمْ بِمَا شِئْتَ, he said, oh Allah, please suffice me from these zalims, soldiers, in whatever manner you think is better. فَانْكَفَأَتْ بِهِمْ السَّفِينَةُ فَغَرِقُوا, and the safina, the boat, the ship, somehow got into a storm and it toppled over and turned upside down, and all the soldiers drowned. And the young boy was safe. وَجَاءَ يَمْشِي إِلَى الْمَلِكِ, and he came walking to the king. فَقَالَ لَهُ الْمَلِكُ مَا فَعِلَ بِأَصْحَابِكَ, what happened to the soldiers who were with you? قَالَ كَفَانِيهِمُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى, Allah was enough for me, He sufficed me. فَقَالَ لِلْمَلِكِ, then the young boy said to the king, إِنَّكَ لَسْتَ بِقَاتِلِي حَتَّى تَفْعَلَ مَا آمُرُكَ بِهِ, you can't kill me unless you do what I'm going to tell you. قَالَ مَا هُوَ, what's that? قَالَ تَجْمَعُ النَّاسَ فِي صَعِيدٍ وَاحِدٍ, you gather people in an open arena, open area. وَتَصْلُبُنِي عَلَى جِذْعٍ, and you tie me onto a piece of wood. ثُمَّ خُذْ سَهْمًا مِنْ كِنَانَتِي, then take one arrow from my bag of arrows. ثُمَّ ضَعِ السَّهْمَ فِي كَبِدِ الْقَوْسِ, then put the arrow into the middle part of the bow. ثُمَّ قُلْ, pull it, and then say, Bismillahi Rabbil Ghulam, I am throwing this arrow in the name of Allah, who is the Rabb of this young boy. ثُمَّ ارْمِنِي, and then you shoot me with that arrow. فَإِنَّكَ إِذَا فَعَلْتَ ذَلِكَ قَتَلْتَنِي, when you do this, then you will kill me. فَجَمَعَ النَّاسَ فِي صَعِيدٍ وَاحِدٍ, so he gathered all people in one open area. وَصَلَبَهُ عَلَى جِذْعٍ, and he tied him with ropes onto a piece of wood. ثُمَّ أَخَذَ سَهْمًا مِنْ كِنَانَتِهِ, then he took one arrow from the boy's bag of arrows. ثُمَّ وَضَعَ السَّهْمَ فِي كَبِدِ الْقَوْسِ, then he put the arrow into the middle part of the bow and then pulled it, and then he said, ثُمَّ قَالَ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ رَبِّ الْغُلَامِ, I am shooting this arrow in the name of Allah, who is the Rabb of this young man. ثُمَّ رَمَاهُ, and he shot him. فَوَقَعَ السَّهْمُ فِي صُدْغِهِ, and the arrow struck the young boy on the side of his face, near his ears, meaning on his head. فَوَضَعَ يَدَهُ فِي صُدْغِهِ فَمَاتَ, then he put his hand on that area and he lowered his head and he died. قال الناس آمنا برب الغلام آمنا برب الغلام, we believe in the Rabb of this young man, we believe in the Rabb of this young man. فأتي الملك, someone came to the king, فقيل له, and said to him, أرأيت ما كنت تحذر, do you see that which you were dreading, you were scared of, you were fearing? قد والله نزل بك حذرك, by Allah, that which you had dreaded has descended upon you. قد آمن الناس, the people have believed and they have brought faith and iman upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فأمر بالأخلود في أفواه السكك, he instructed that ditches and holes and trenches be dug on the roads and on the streets, on the opening of the street. فخدت, and huge trenches and holes were dug. وأضرم فيها النينا, and then wood was piled in there and fire was burnt. وقال من لم يرجع عن دينه فأقحموه فيها, and he gave an order that whosoever does not turn away from his deen, then throw him inside. أو قيل له اقتحم, or he was told that jump in there. ففعلوا, and the soldiers began to do that, and they were throwing people into that fire, burning them to death. حتى جاءت امرأة ومعها صبي لها, until a lady approached and with her was a child of hers. فتقاعست, and she was hesitating a little bit and going back behind. فقال لها الغلام, so the young boy said to her, يا أمّا اصبري فإنك على الحق, dear mother, be steady, be patient. You are surely upon the truth. Rawahu Muslim. This hadith was narrated by Imam Muslim in his Sahih. This is the hadith. The story goes, Rasul Pak sallallahu alayhi wasallam is saying that sometime before there was a king, and as I mentioned, this king used to live in Najran, which is in the area of Yemen, a city in Yemen, and that is where this incident took place. He had a magician, meaning in those days people used to believe in magic, hoodoo, abracadabra, kabbalah, and these type of magic, people used to believe in that. And that king, he used to control his public by magic. So he was in need of magician. Today as well, people are controlled by magic. Which magic? The magic of media, newspapers, television, radio. People, are pumped so much into their brains that people can't think for themselves. They just believe in whatever they are spoon-fed. Whatever BBC says is wahyi munazzal min as-sama. As though it's come up now down from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Na'uzubillah, astaghfirullah. People believe in everything and they say this is the truth, and that's how they are brainwashed, and that's how people are controlled. So in those days, they used to use the magicians, and through magic they used to control. Now this magician, whom the king used to use, was a very expert. He had grown old and he thought that I'm going to die now, so I have to pass on my magic. So he said to the king, you give me some young man who is intelligent and who can learn properly, and I will teach him the magic and your kingdom will continue. So he chose one young man, and that young man was also from a son of one of his parliamentarians, member of parliament. So from his close confidence, so he chose one young man and he said, you have to go to this magician and learn from him. Now the magician used to live at a distance, and the boy would travel every day to the magician back and forth. On his way, he saw a rahib, a monk. This boy's name is also mentioned by some muhaddithin. Imam Qurtubi rahmatullah narrated it in his tafsir that this young boy's name was Abdullah ibn Tamir. And as I said before, this incident happened between Isa alayhi salam and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, maybe 300 years after Isa alayhi salam. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam came nearly 600 years after Isa. So in the middle somewhere. So this boy was to pass by, and he used to pass by a rahib. Rahib is someone who has given up the luxuries of this life for the sake of the hereafter. And there were many rahibs in those times, like we hear about Buhaira Rahib, who saw Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam during that journey, and who was hospitable to them, and then he foretold that this boy is going to be a prophet. So there were plenty of rahibs and monks at that time. They used to denounce the luxuries and pleasures of this world, and they would do ibadah, tasbih, zikr, and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In our deen, this type of rahbaniyat is not allowed. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, La rahbaniyata fil Islam. There is no monk and monastery in Islam. You can't become a rahib. You can't say, I'm not going to marry, I'm going to stay alone, and I'm not going to eat good food, I'm not going to wear good clothes, I'm going to stay scruffy, and I don't want the luxuries of this dunya. So this type of rahbaniyat and monastery is not allowed. We can't become monk. A Muslim life should be like the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He used to wear good clothes, he used to eat good food, he used to marry, and he used to be normal, he used to stay with the public. He wouldn't go away and stay throughout his whole life in one cave or somewhere. No, he stayed with the people, he was nice. And we have this deen which is called Al-Hanifiyyatu Samha. Al-Hanif, As-Samh, easy going and upright religion. So, in those times they used to have this Rabbaniyat. So he used to go from this Rahib. So he used to look at the Rahib, and he thought that this man is nice. Yeah, he's got tasbih, worshipping Allah. So he used to start with the Rahib, and can I learn from you? And he taught him a few things. Then he said, please give me permission, I have to go to the magician. So he used to go to the magician. Now when he would get late, the magician would beat him up. He said, why are you late? You should be on time here. So he couldn't understand. So he asked the Rahib, you know, I'm magician, he beats me up, what should I say? So he said, no, you don't want to take it easy. When you go to him, if he says, why you come late, tell him, I was late from home. My mom, my father, my dad, they didn't let me come quickly. Then you will be relieved. And if you go home late, then say that the magician withheld me, he didn't let me come early. Now, apparently this seems like kidhb, lying. But sometimes, if you want to save yourself, then for that, then this type of maybe it's permissible, because he has no choice. It's called iztirar, majburi. When a person is mustar and he wants to save his life, then it's allowed. Like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam permitted kizb in 3 places. ورخص في 3 في الحرب وفي الإصلاح بين الرجلين وكذب الرجل على امرأته. That sometimes your wife is going to beat you up and you want to save yourself, so you can say something by which you can save yourself. This reminds me of one incident. One Sahabi, Abdullah ibn Rawaha radiyallahu anhu. His wife was very strong and very, possessive. One night, he woke up, his wife was sleeping, he sneaked out, and he went to his slave girl, and he slept with her. Now, when he finished his need, and he was coming back, his wife woke up, and she realized that something is fishy, and he went over there. So she was really angry. She said, you've been to that maid and you slept with her? He said, no. I'm telling you, you've been there. And she started beating up and she took a knife and started to put him down and she was sitting on his chest. And Abdullah said, hey, one minute, take it easy, please don't do that. He said, okay, you don't believe me? Let me ask you something. You know, when you are in the state of janabat, major impurity, need of ghusl, can you read the Quran? And she said, no, you can't read the Quran. Well, if I read the Quran to you, will you believe me? And she said, okay, I'll believe you. And he started reciting some poetry. وَفِينَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ يَتْلُو كِتَابَهُ إِذَا انشَقَّ مَعْرُوفٌ مِنَ الْفَجْرِ سَاطِعُ يَبِيتُ يُجَافِي جَنْبَهُ عَنْ فِرَاشِهِ إِذَا اسْتَسْقَلَتْ بِالْمُشْرِكِينَ الْمَضَاجِعُ أَرَانَا الْهُدَى بَعْدَ الْعَمَى فَقُلُوبُنَا بِهِ مُوقِنَاتٌ أَنَّمَا قَالَ وَاقِعُ. And she thought, okay, mashallah, you're reading Quran. Okay, she let him off. In the morning, Abdullah ibn Rawaha came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and after Fajr he told him, Ya Rasulullah, this happened last night. And Rasulullah really laughed, and all the Sahaba started laughing. That you tricked your wife. She thought you're reading the Quran, you were reading some poetry. So when you want to save your life, you can't tell a lie. So over here, also this young boy had to save his life because he was getting beaten up. So the Rahib said, you can save your life like this. So he used to do that. Now, one day, this incident happens. That the young boy is passing by and everybody in the street is scared and terrified, going inside their homes. And nobody is attempting to pass. So he said, what's going on? Why is everybody running around? Why are you running around? This is the lion, there is a lion. Oh, lion, everybody is scared of lion. So the young boy thought to himself that today I can check out who is better, the Sa'ir or the Rahib. So he took one stone. Now you can't kill a lion with one stone. So he said, he took a stone and he made dua. Oh Allah, if the matter of the Rahib is more beloved to you, you like the Rahib more than the Sa'ir, he is more beloved to you, then kill this lion with this one stone. And he threw the stone and the lion was dead. And people couldn't believe it. I said, oh wow, this is a miracle. This is a karama, this is mu'jiza. Miracle, what is this? This person, this young boy killed that lion with one stone. And they were all amazed, shell-shocked. Now, this news spread around. Now this type of incident, talking to a lion and telling him to go away, it happened to many other Salaf as well. Sayyiduna Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu was once passing by in the streets of Medina and people were running around. And he said, why are people running around? He said, there's a lion in that street. So Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu said, oh, people are scared of a lion. And he went to the lion and he got hold of the lion's ears and he said, oh Abu Haris, if Allah has told you to do something, do it. Otherwise, go back to the jungle. Don't scare people off. So the lion stood up, started wagging his tail and went back into the jungle. And Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu said, if Ibn Adam fears Allah, then everything fears him. When you have the khawf of Allah in your heart, then the creation will have your khawf and your fear. Allahu Akbar. Today, we have lost that fear of Allah, and because of that we fear everyone else. We fear the creation. If we don't fear the Khaliq, we will fear the Makhluk. If we bring the fear and khawf of Khaliq in our hearts, then we won't fear anyone. We won't be scared of anyone. We will be brave. And we will say whatever happens is from Allah. Why should I be scared? So over here as well, he just threw one stone and the lion was dead. And everybody started talking about it. Now the young boy came to the Rahib and he related the incident to him. And the Rahib said, oh, young boy, you have gone ahead of me now. Your matter and your position in the eyes of Allah is greater than my position. Allah showed you this miracle. MashaAllah, wah wah, shabas. And then he said that, now since the news has spread, then you will be tested now. So if you are asked that who taught you this, don't take my name. He said, because he knew that the king is a tyrant and he could punish him, torture him and beat him up. So he said, please leave me with afiyat. Don't tell him I taught you all this. And the young boy said, okay. Now, people started coming to him and asking him to pray something, blow on them so they can be cured. And the boy used to do that. And he used to cure people from many sicknesses. And especially over here, al-akmah wal-abras. Akmah means a child who is born blind. Now we have our pupils. Now if someone was blind, he had eyesight, but in old age he lost it, then he will still have the pupils. He's just lost the sight, but he still have the pupils. But if a child is born blind, then he won't have any pupils here either. He will only have skin. He won't have any eyelids as well, and he won't have any eyelashes either. So such a child who is born blind, who doesn't have any pupils either, is called al-akmah. Now this was miracle mu'jiza of Sayyiduna Isa alayhi salam. وَأُبْرِئُ الْأَكْمَهَ وَالْأَبْرَصَ وَأُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ وَأُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِمَا تَأْكُلُونَ وَمَا تَدَّخِرُونَ فِي بُيُوتِكُمْ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَةً لَكُمْ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. So this is called akmah. And abras, someone who has leprosy, who has white skin marks on the body. And then because of that leprosy, he has spots of white skin, and he feels it, he feels irritated as well, and he feels the sunshine, heat and everything as well. So this person is called abras. Now, these people with severe illnesses would come and he would read something, blow on them. This is called ruqyah. And with that ruqyah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would cure them. So people started coming. And whenever someone would come that cure me, he would say, I don't cure anyone, Allah cures. If you want cure, then you believe in Allah. And then say kalma, La ilaha illallah, Isa ruhullah wa kalimatuhu. Then you read this kalima, Amantu billahi wa malaikatihi wa kutubihi wa rusulihi wal yawmil akhir wal qadri khayrihi wa sharrihi min Allahi ta'ala wal ba'si ba'da al-maut. This is Iman, and Iman was same in all Shariats. So you believe and you have this Iman and faith, then I will ask Allah, make dua that Allah cures you. Allah will cure you. I don't cure anyone. I don't have the power to cure. So they would say, okay, we did the kalima, we become Muslims. And when they would become Muslim, he would make dua, Allah would cure them. And this news spread around, and everybody started coming to his house, line huge queue, and he would instruct everyone, and he would help them, and people would be cured. Until that word reached one attendant of the king, who used to sit with the king, Jalisul Malik. Now this Jalisul Malik was a blind. So he said, let me go and talk to this young man. So he brought many, many gifts. And he said, all these gifts and presents and money is yours. You only have to do one thing. I am blind, cure me. He said, look, I don't cure anyone, Allah cures. You believe in Allah, you have Sahih Aqidah, Iman, you give up this idol worship, you worship Allah, I will ask Allah and Allah will cure you. He said, okay, I'm ready for that. He read the kalma and the boy made dua, blew on him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cured him. Now, the attendant of the king, he returned home, and next day he went and sat with the king. So the king asked him that who returned your eyesight? And he said, my Rabb. Who is your Rabb? Do you have any Rabb beside me? I am your Rabb. He said, no, you're not the Rabb. Your Rabb and my Rabb is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he said, oh, you have gone against me. And then he started beating him up. Tell me, who told you this? Who told you this? Who told you this? Punishing him, beating him up. Until he had to say, is that young boy. So he asked for the young boy. He was brought, he was beaten up, and he told him about the Rahib. It's the Rahib who taught me all this. So now he said, oh, this is where it's coming from. So he called on the Rahib, and he killed the Rahib. And he didn't just cut his throat off with a sword, he brought for a saw and put the saw on the middle part of his head, and he told the soldiers to tear him into two pieces. And they killed him, they cut him into two pieces, and he had the sabr, he was patient. Now, in this condition, when you are fearful of your life, you are allowed to say kalimatul kufr in order to save your life. But if you are patient, then that is more rewarding for you. Allah Pak said, "Man kafara billahi min ba'di imanihi illa man ukriha wa qalbuhu mutma'innun bil iman, walakin man sharaha bil kufri sadran fa'alayhim ghadabun min Allah wa lahum 'adhabun 'azim. ذلك بأنه مستحب الحياة الدنيا على الآخرة وأن الله لا يهدي القوم الكافرين." If you openly declare kufr after having believed and having brought faith, except for those who are forced to say kalma of kufr, but in their heart there is iman, then they are exempted. Other than that, whosoever declares his kufr and his apostasy with boasting nature and said, oh yes, I am the kalma kufr, declaring the kalma of kufr, then فَعَلَيْهِمْ غَضَبٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ, upon them is the wrath of Allah. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. They only do this because they prefer the life of this dunya over akhirah, and because they had kufr deep down in their hearts, and Allah does not guide such people who are kafirin, who are deniers from the beginning. أولئك الذين طبع الله على قلوبهم وسمعهم وأبصارهم وأولئك هم الغافلون. Allah has set a seal on their hearts and on their ears, on their eyes, and they are the negligent ones. So may Allah protect us from irtidad, from kufr, from apostasy. If you are being forced to say kalma kufr, then you are permitted that openly you say kalma kufr, but iman is in your heart. This happened during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Khabbab ibn Arat radiyallahu anhu. The mushrikeen beat him up and they tortured him until he couldn't take it anymore. And then they told him to say kalma kufr, and he said the kufriya kalimat, and they let him go. Then he came to Rasulullah, he was crying, they made me do this, they made me say this. Rasulullah consoled him, he said, don't worry, I know you are a proper Muslim, Khabbab, you don't need to worry. So upon that, this ayat was revealed. On the other side, Sayyiduna Bilal Habshi radiyallahu anhu was beaten up, and he was told to say kalma kufr, but he said, no, I'm not going to say. He used to say, ahad, 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 ahad. Allah is one, Allah is one. During the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was an incident, same in this Yemen area, in the area of Musaylama Kazzab. Musaylama Kazzab got hold of two Sahabas, and he beat them up, and then he asked them, who is Muhammad? And they said, he is Rasulullah. And who am I? So one of the Sahaba, he couldn't take it, and he said, you as well. So he let him off. And he called for the other one, and he said, who is Muhammad? He said, Rasulullah. And who am I? He said, you're not Rasulullah. So he started beating him up. And then he started chopping off his limbs, one by one finger, second finger, third finger, and slowly killed him, bled him, and the person bled to death. Rasulullah was informed of both incidents. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no problem. The first person also did that to save his life, and the second person, over here, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said some good words regarding him as well. فبلغ ذلك رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال أما أحدهما فقد أخذ برخصة الله وأما الثاني فقد صدع بالحق فهنيئا له. As for the second one, he declared the truth and haqq openly, so good news for him. So over here as well, this person who was torn into two pieces, he could have declared the kalima kufr. When he was told irji an dinik, he could have done ruju, but he said no, I'm going to be steadfast. He stayed steadfast, Allah will reward him. And so he was killed. Then the rahib was brought, and rahib also said no, I'm not going to say kufriya kalimat, kufriya words, and he was also killed. And as for the ghulam, the king said, I'm not going to kill you with this sword, you are a young boy, go away from here. And he said, take him and throw him from the mountain. And the hadith continues after that. Inshallah, from there we will read next week, inshallah. Okay? So the hadith is about sabr, and we read about the sabr of the first two, and then we will hear about the sabr of the whole nation, of all those ashabul ukhdud. That is why we have to be patient. We have to make dua in all instances. رَبَّنَا أَفْرِغْ عَلَيْنَا صَبْرًا وَثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَنَا وَانْصُرْنَا عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ. May Allah give us sabr and to be patient. Make this a small dua. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Allahumma lakal hamdu wa lakal shukru. Allahumma lakal hamdu wa lakal shukru. Allahumma lakal hamdu wa lakal shukru. Allahumma la nuhsi thanaan alayk anta kama athnayta ala nafsik. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala sayyidina maulana Muhammadin abdika wa rasulik النبي الأمي نبي الرحمة كما تحب وترضى عدد ما تحب وترضى كل ما ذكره الذاكرون وكل ما غفل عن ذكره الغافلون. اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. رب اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين. اللهم اغفر لجميع أمة سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم ارحم أمة سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم تجاوز عن أمة سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم ثبتنا على الإيمان وأمتنا على الإيمان واحشرنا يوم القيامة مع المتقين مع الإيمان. اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من الراشدين واجعلنا من الفائزين المهديين. ربنا لا تجعلنا فتنة للقوم الظالمين ونجنا برحمتك من القوم الكافرين. ربنا عليك توكلنا وإليك نبنا وإليك المصير. ربنا لا تجعلنا فتنة للذين كفروا واغفر لنا ربنا إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. وصلى اللهم وسلم على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك.